2 down, quite a few to go. Now, I ran another one with 1 barracks expand with soldiers. This is the exact same thing as riflemen, except I went only soldiers instead. There's no build time difference or gold cost difference between riflemen and soldiers. So there's actually not any benefit to checking that out. Now, we're going to look at a slightly less economic, slightly delayed expansion, 1 racks expand. Bing! Now this is something I actually started doing recently in my games, and I've also started doing it when I first started the game. I wanted to see how fast you could get. Now look at this. Remember how I said at 27 seconds, that's the fastest you can plop down your house, bing, while getting a barracks and still keeping worker production? Well, that's true. But if you decide to cut workers a little tiny bit early on, you can get a very, very aggressive poke. So look, we built the house immediately, sent the other ones to mine, and made 1 unit. So we're at 6 of 10. Now look, immediately after that house is done, we're going to go ahead and build a barracks at about 41 seconds. Holy crap, that's fast. Now, I screwed up here. When this unit comes out, it's not actually going to be able to come out. It's going to be stuck over here. So if you're copying this, don't copy the fail, just copy the win. Oh yeah. Once this barracks goes down, you're going to make 2 workers, because you will be able to make precisely 2 workers while still having enough to afford the unit to come out of this barracks. So notice this. 2 workers are queued up. We're going to go to times 3. Again, just like before, the unit that you make here doesn't matter if you want to go rifleman or soldier, but it makes the difference is in why you would want to go rifleman or soldier. If you go rifleman with this very, very fast build, then what you're roughly 1 unit cycle ahead of a player who does a more normal economic 1 barracks expand. So if they go soldier and you go rifleman, your second rifleman will come out about the same time their first soldier does. So if your micro is good enough, you will be able to pin back a 1 barracks expand player who goes soldiers. Now if it's not as solid, or if you're looking for more of a bust against a 6 expand, look at this. 2 minutes and your first soldier would come out. It'll take about 20 seconds for him to get across the map. Let's say this is where, if you're going 6 expand on this map, roughly here is where your tower would go. Your soldier is going to get there around 2:30. The tower still has 15 seconds until it completes, so you can get free damage or run past it with a soldier to harass other workers. It's just good, 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 good. Now notice this. We'll be able to continuously produce out of this barracks and out of yonder castle. And around 2:30 is where you have some choices. You can decide if you send this unit out to scout and you see your opponent's going 2 barracks, or for watchtower cheese or forges or something like that, you can take this unit right here and you can say, okay, enough of the production for workers for now, I need to survive, put down a 2nd barracks. Or if you see your opponent is expanding, you can continue like so. You can choose, oh, I can continue to make units out of here, or I can stop making units and go ahead and make an expansion. What I'm showing here is what happens if you just decide to go and just keep making units. Now, as before, when this had 10 of 10, we moved the guy out of here to put that at 9 of 10. No reminders. At 9 of 10, this soldier this worker finishes, this worker lines back at 10 of 10. If you go for this fastest variant, then with continuous production, you will be able to put down an expansion around 327. You're roughly 25 seconds slower than if you had gone ahead and done this, the more economic 1 barracks expand. But I checked something out, and it turns out that if you go for this build, this fastest variant where you put the house down immediately instead of at 27 seconds, in addition to getting more of a worker, more of a unit presence, you will actually here, let's rush over to the 430. If you go for the 1 barracks expand method, you'll have roughly 13 workers by 430. If you go for this variant, Look at that. You're still at 5 units, and only because I messed up. Look, your 13th worker is about to pop out. You have 2 bases, and if you look at gold mined, you'll only be about 70 gold behind. So you're roughly 1 unit's worth of gold behind, but you got 1 unit out faster, so you'll be more likely to take a good trade. So, if you're considering this fastest variant instead of the economic variant, here are some things you have to consider. If you're going to go for this fastest variant, you don't have to do damage, but it's a good idea. At about 4 minutes 30 seconds, you're going to be even on gold, but any damage you can do is kind of needed because you're about a unit's behind worth in gold. Another thing to consider is that your expansion is going to go down at about 425, 427, at 325 or 327 instead of 3 minutes. So you're roughly 30 seconds behind on that gold mining, but you have equivalent worker production. So something to consider. That's it for this replay. Bing! Something I haven't been saying, but you really need to consider, is if you're going for 1 barracks expand, it tends to take more micro and more actions per minute out of you than if you just go for a 6 expand or economic opening. So if you have low APM and you don't want to force that weakness, I'd advise staying away from 1 barracks expand. If you have low APM and you want to get better with it, 1 barracks expand is an excellent way to do that, as is going for these more aggressive openings. Now we're going to go for 2 racks expo. 2 racks expo has kind of fallen out of favor, but it has the same basic idea as we saw with the 1 barracks expansion. The difficulty with this, benefit of 2 barracks expand, here we're going to go for the same 27-second house, followed by the same roughly minute 04 barracks. The benefit of 2 barracks with this expo bend is that you have the option of transitioning out of your 2 barracks and trying to get back in the game by taking an expansion. You'll also have a lot of units on the field. The disadvantage of this, and the advantage is that you'll be roughly, on average, ahead of an opponent who goes 1 barracks expand, since typically they don't put down a watchtower because they're assuming that their unit count is going to be to their benefit. The disadvantage of going for this 2 barracks expo type deal is that if you go for 2 barracks expo and your opponent went castle first, you have 1 shot really to make sure that you do enough damage to come back in the game. Otherwise their economy is just going to roll you over. So you need to be really, really aggressive with the units that you send out. No, stay on page. So now notice when this barracks finishes at about minute 58, your second barracks goes down before this unit comes out. At 80 gold, you're going to pop out a soldier. Then at 60 gold, you're going to pop out a worker. What you're going to find with this 2 barracks, with the slightly delayed second barracks, is that you're going to have the option to go ahead and eventually you're going to be able to produce workers and units out of your barracks, and eventually you're just going to, what do I do? I can expand. And we'll see this now, actually. It's coming ahead. It's coming to a head. About now. About, I would say, when you're at 16 of 20 with this 2 barracks, look at that. You're going to have about 315. You're going to have 3 barracks. You're going to have 3 soldiers, rather. It's going to be good. 3 soldiers to burst down a tower. That tower has only been up for 30 seconds for a normal castle first. Now, around here, 16 of 20, 325, this is where you can make your decision. Ideally, these units are over here in your opponent's base killing their dudes. But you can make the choice. Do you want to keep rallying out units and trying to get them killed? Or, if you find your attack isn't going well, or they're defending better than you hoped, or maybe they did something unorthodox, put down 2 watchtowers or something like that, you can cancel both of these units, and that's 80 plus 80 is 160. You'll be at 290. So at around 330, you can go ahead and expand. If you note, you're going to be behind the player that didn't do that, but you'll pretty handily beat down a 1 barracks expand, or at least either force them to build a tower or force them to be very, very defensive, and that allows you to take an expand pretty well. Now, this is more of a counter 1 barracks expand build. There's another variant of 2 barracks. Hey, that's Expo Slant. This is without expand. Run it through. You're going to see something very similar. We're going to get to 27 seconds. We're going to go ahead and we're going to build a house. And then at about a minute 4, we're going to build another barracks. But here's the key difference. When we went for 2 barracks, looking to take and expand later, maybe if the opportunity presents itself, we were continuously making workers when we were making the barracks, which is why we couldn't make the second barracks until roughly after the first one had finished, roughly around a minute 50 or so. If you go for this kind of build, look, you're still going to get your about minute 4 first barracks, minute 5, minute 6, but you're not going to make any more workers. This is going to get canceled. Don't worry about it. See, I'm going to get right about here and cancel it. Ding, canceled. This allows you to build a second barracks at about 135. Now here is the thing with doing this. Man, I'm good. It's almost like I made these replays. If you do this, you will only have enough gold to support making units out of these 2 barracks. And that is it. There is no transition without cutting units. If you do this, if you notice, you're still at the same 7 workers that you've been at. You only made the first 2 in the beginning and you're stuck on that. If you go for this build, you're basically all in. You have to do damage to come back into the game. Like, the surprise and the speed of it has to catch someone off guard or you're in deep trouble. There's really not any transition out of it. I mean, here, let me hold off on that. You can transition. You can't see me because I don't have a webcam, but hypothetical parentheses transition. You can transition, but what that would entail is stop making units. Keep pumping out workers. Try and take and expand quickly. But you're going to be vastly, vastly behind, especially a 6 expand if you don't do damage, but even a 1 racks expand, even the 1 racks faster variant expand, and you'll be behind the 2 barracks looking towards an expand. The only benefit of this is something I'll show you later, is that this is a really, really good build for proxies, meaning you build 1 barracks in your base, it looks at a normal time, and then you build the other barracks somewhere like here, so it looks like you're going for a 1 barracks expand. In reality, you're going to go and try and kill all the things. But it's important to note that if you're doing this, you need to do damage. Expanding is not really an option. If you're at the point where you have to expand because after you went for this as your opening, you're in deep, deep fecal matter.